The evening rush hour had just begun in downtown Manhattan. The scent of freshly baked bread and sizzling street food filled the air, mixing with the city's usual scent of exhaust fumes and ambition. At the center of it all was Gregory Stanton, a man who had built his fortune from nothing, or so he liked to say. He had the kind of wealth that made people lean in when he spoke and nod at whatever he said, whether it made sense or not. Tonight, he was treating himself to an expensive, exclusive meal from La Maison Royale, one of New York's most prestigious restaurants. His assistant, Elliot, had picked up the order himself, making sure everything was perfect. Gregory stepped out of his sleek, black luxury car, straightening his tailored suit as he prepared to take a seat at a private outdoor table. The evening lights shimmered against the glass of the nearby high-rises, and everything seemed perfect. Until it happened. A young boy, dirty, frail, and barefoot, rushed toward him, his eyes wide with panic. "Don't eat that!" he screamed at the top of his lungs. A sudden hush fell over the surrounding area. People turned to look, confused. Some even took out their phones, sensing a viral moment in the making. Gregory blinked in disbelief, his fork hovering inches away from his mouth. The boy's chest heaved as he struggled to catch his breath, his face pale and desperate. Elliot immediately stepped in, furious. "What the hell are you doing, kid?" The boy pointed at Gregory's plate, his hands trembling. "You can't eat that. Please. If you do, you'll—" The boy choked on his words, unable to finish his sentence. Gregory frowned, glancing at his expensive meal. It looked perfect. The truffle-infused steak, the delicate foie gras, the golden brown potatoes, all of it crafted by a Michelin star chef. What could possibly be wrong with it? But the boy's terror was real. His wide, pleading eyes weren't the eyes of a troublemaker, they were the eyes of someone who had seen something terrible. "Why?" Gregory finally asked, his voice sharp. "Why shouldn't I eat it?" The boy gulped, his throat dry. Then, his next words sent a cold chill down Gregory's spine. "Because I saw them put something in it. I saw what they did. And if you eat it, you'll die." The crowd gasped. Gregory's fingers went numb around his fork. Elliot exchanged a quick, uneasy glance with him. "Sir, it's just a kid. He's probably lying." But was he? Gregory had faced many things in his life. Business rivals, betrayals, lawsuits. But this? This was different. He turned his gaze back to the homeless boy, standing there, shaking, his eyes darting toward the restaurant like he feared someone inside might come out and silence him forever. Gregory's pulse pounded. "What did you see?" he demanded. The boy hesitated. Then, he took a deep breath and whispered, "It was the chef. He didn't think anyone was watching, but I saw him. He poisoned your food. I swear. Please. You have to believe me." And just like that, Gregory Stanton's entire world shifted. Who would want him dead? Why would a Michelin star chef poison his food? And most importantly, was this boy telling the truth? Or was he part of something even bigger? As Gregory locked eyes with the terrified boy, he realized one thing. He had two choices: trust the kid, or take a bite and find out the hard way. For a moment, Gregory didn't move. His hand trembled slightly, the fork still hovering near his mouth. The weight of the boy's words settled over him like a thick fog. He glanced down at the meal in front of him, perfectly plated, luxurious, the kind of food meant for the elite. Could it really be poisoned? Elliot scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Sir, he's just a dirty street kid trying to cause a scene." But the boy's face was pale with fear. His eyes flickered toward the restaurant again, like he expected someone to burst out and grab him. Gregory's instincts, honed over years of business deals, betrayals, and backstabbing, kicked in. He had survived in the corporate jungle by knowing when someone was bluffing. This boy wasn't bluffing. Gregory slowly put his fork down. "Tell me exactly what you saw." The boy gulped. I was behind the restaurant, digging through the trash for food. The back door was open, and I saw the chef. He hesitated, lowering his voice. He poured something into the sauce. Then he stirred it real fast and looked around, like he was making sure no one saw. "But I saw." Gregory's stomach tightened. Elliot shook his head. "Sir, come on. This is ridiculous." You're going to believe some homeless kid over a world-renowned chef? What possible reason would he have to poison your food? Gregory looked up, his eyes sharp. That's exactly what I intend to find out. Then, before Elliot could protest, Gregory did something no one expected. He stood up, picked up his plate, and turned toward the restaurant. "Sir," Elliot started, but Gregory was already marching inside. The boy hesitated for only a second before rushing after him. Inside La Maison Royale, the air was thick with the scent of butter, rosemary, and seared meat. The hum of quiet conversations and clinking glasses filled the elegant dining space. Gregory didn't stop at the host's podium. He strode straight into the kitchen. "Sir, you can't be in here," a waiter protested, but Gregory ignored him. The kitchen was a swirl of controlled chaos. Chefs in pristine white jackets moved like clockwork, chopping, frying, plating. But Gregory was looking for one person. And then, he saw him. Chef Antoine Moreau. A man whose reputation in the culinary world was untouchable. A perfectionist. A genius. And, according to the terrified boy at his side, a would-be murderer. Chef Moreau looked up from the dish he was preparing. His dark eyes landed on Gregory, and for the briefest second, a flicker of something crossed his face. Annoyance. Surprise. Fear. Gregory held up his plate. "Did you make this?" The entire kitchen froze. Moreau wiped his hands on his apron, giving a polite smile. "Mr. Stanton, I assure you, everything is prepared to the highest." "Did you poison it?" Gasps echoed around the kitchen. A nearby sous chef dropped a knife. Moreau's smile didn't falter, but his eyes darkened. "That's an insulting accusation." The homeless boy gripped Gregory's sleeve tightly. "He did it," the boy whispered. "I know he did." Gregory placed the plate on the counter between them. "Then you wouldn't mind taking the first bite?" Moreau's jaw tightened. The room fell into silence. Gregory folded his arms, watching him closely. "Go ahead, chef. You made it. If you're telling the truth, then prove it." For a moment, Moreau did nothing. His fingers twitched slightly at his sides. He glanced at the plate, then at Gregory, then at the boy standing next to him. And then, Moreau did something no one expected. He lunged forward, grabbed the plate, and slammed it into the floor. The dish shattered, food scattering everywhere. Chaos erupted. Chefs gasped, waiters shouted. Gregory took a step back, heart pounding. Moreau looked up, his breathing ragged, his composure completely gone. His hands shook slightly, but his face twisted into a forced, casual smirk. "Oops." He exhaled slowly. "Guess we'll never know." Gregory's blood ran cold. The boy grabbed his arm. See. I told you." Elliot stepped forward, furious. "What the hell was that? Why would you do that if you had nothing to hide?" Moreau wiped his hands on his apron again. "Because I refuse to entertain ridiculous accusations from a street rat and a paranoid businessman." Gregory felt his pulse thundering. This man had just destroyed the evidence. And that could only mean one thing. The boy was telling the truth. His food had been poisoned. And someone wanted him dead. But who? And why? Moreau turned back to his staff, waving them off. "I have a kitchen to run. If you'll excuse me, I suggest you leave." Gregory clenched his fists. This wasn't over. Who was behind this? Was it Moreau acting alone? Or was there someone else pulling the strings? Gregory needed answers. And he would get them, no matter what it took. The kitchen of La Maison Royale was still in shock. A world-renowned chef had just smashed a plate of food rather than take a single bite. That alone was damning. Gregory Stanton had spent decades in boardrooms and high-stakes negotiations. He knew when someone was guilty. And Chef Moreau was guilty. But the bigger question remained. Who was behind this? Moreau wouldn't act alone. A man of his reputation would never risk his career unless someone powerful was pulling the strings. Gregory turned to the homeless boy, who was still clinging to his sleeve, eyes wide with fear. "What's your name, kid?" Gregory asked. The boy hesitated before whispering, "Jamie." Gregory nodded. "All right, Jamie. You said you saw him put something in my food. Did you see anything else? Jamie bit his lip. His dirty fingers clenched the fabric of his ragged hoodie. Not exactly, but when he was done stirring, he went into the office in the back. He was on the phone. He looked nervous. Gregory turned back toward the kitchen, his mind racing. Moreau was just a piece of the puzzle. The real mastermind had to be whoever was on that phone call. Gregory glanced at Elliot. Find out who owns this restaurant. Elliot immediately took out his phone, tapping quickly. Moreau, meanwhile, was back at his station, pretending like nothing had happened. He ignored the shocked glances from his staff and continued chopping vegetables with controlled, precise movements. Gregory wasn't letting this go. Without another word, he strode past the stunned staff and toward the back of the kitchen. "Sir, you can't," a waiter protested, but Gregory pushed open the office door anyway. Inside was a small, cluttered room, a stark contrast to the pristine luxury of the restaurant. Papers were scattered on the desk, and a computer monitor was still on. And there, on the desk, was a half-empty glass of wine. Gregory's stomach twisted. Moreau had been in here recently. Maybe right after poisoning his food. He scanned the desk. Invoices. Delivery slips. Payroll records. And then, a notebook. Gregory grabbed it and flipped through the pages. His eyes narrowed as he spotted something scribbled at the bottom of a page. "It's done. He won't live through the night." A chill ran down his spine. This wasn't just an attempt to make him sick. Whoever was behind this wanted him dead. "Mr. Stanton," Elliot's voice came from the doorway. He held up his phone. "I just checked. The restaurant is owned by Regal Holdings, LLC. Gregory stiffened. He knew that name. Regal Holdings was owned by a man he hadn't spoken to in years. A man who had every reason to hate him. Harrison Vale. The room suddenly felt colder. Jamie looked up at him. "Who's that?" Gregory's jaw tightened. "An old business partner. And if he's behind this," he exhaled sharply, "then we have a much bigger problem." 12 years ago, Gregory and Harrison Vale had once been inseparable. They had built a multi-million-dollar company together, one that could have made them both legends. But Harrison had gotten greedy. He wanted full control, and when Gregory refused to sell his shares, Harrison made his move. Through a combination of legal loopholes, backdoor deals, and betrayal, Harrison had forced Gregory out of the company. Gregory had lost everything overnight. His fortune, his reputation, his best friend. But Harrison hadn't accounted for one thing: Gregory was a fighter. He had rebuilt his empire from the ground up, surpassing even Harrison's wealth. Now, years later, it seemed Harrison wasn't done with him. And this time, it wasn't about money. It was about revenge. Present day. Gregory stared at the name on the document, his fists clenching. He turned to Elliot. "Find out where Harrison is right now." Elliot nodded and stepped aside to make some calls. Jamie tugged at Gregory's sleeve. "Mister, if this guy is trying to kill you, then you're not safe here." Gregory looked at him. The kid was right. Chef Moreau had failed tonight, but what if there was another attempt? A car accident, a break-in, a bullet from a rooftop. Harrison had resources, connections. He wouldn't stop with just one plan. Gregory made a decision. He turned to Jamie. "Come with me." Jamie blinked. "What?" Gregory nodded. "You saved my life. And I don't think it's safe for you here either. Whoever's behind this knows you saw something." Jamie hesitated, glancing toward the kitchen. His stomach growled loudly. Gregory sighed. "First, let's get you some food. Then, we figure out how to end this." Jamie's eyes lit up, but before he could respond, bang! The sound of gunfire shattered the air. Waiters and customers screamed as a bullet ripped through the restaurant's front window. Gregory grabbed Jamie and ducked behind the desk. "Get down!" Elliot yelled, diving for cover. Another shot rang out, hitting the coffee machine in the kitchen, sending a spray of boiling liquid into the air. Gregory's heart pounded. This wasn't a warning. This was a kill order. And whoever was outside wasn't leaving until Gregory Stanton was dead. Glass rained down as another bullet shattered the restaurant's front window. Screams echoed through La Maison Royale, customers and staff scrambling for cover. Gregory Stanton flattened himself against the floor, shielding Jamie behind the overturned desk in the office. "Stay down, kid. Don't move." Jamie's breathing was ragged, his small hands gripping the fabric of Gregory's coat. He had seen danger before. Living on the streets meant surviving all kinds of threats. But this was something else. Elliot, crouched behind a counter, pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the cops." Before he could dial, a fourth bullet punched through the walls, narrowly missing his head. Gregory's mind raced. Whoever was outside wasn't just shooting at random. They were aiming. They were professionals. This wasn't an impulsive attack. This was planned. And if Gregory didn't move fast, he and Jamie weren't making it out of here alive. Outside, across the street, hidden inside a black SUV, a man in a dark coat adjusted the high-powered rifle resting on his shoulder. His earpiece crackled. "Confirm target status." "Is he dead?" The sniper exhaled, lining up another shot. Gregory Stanton was supposed to be dead already. But he was smart. Too smart. The sniper adjusted his aim, watching the chaos inside the restaurant. The kid was still with him. Annoying. He had complicated things. The earpiece crackled again. "Status now." The sniper gritted his teeth. "Negative. Stanton is still alive." A long silence. Then, the cold voice responded. "Then finish the job. Now, back inside." Gregory's instincts took over. They had seconds, maybe less, before another bullet tore through the office. He grabbed Jamie's wrist. "We're getting out of here." Jamie nodded frantically, his body shaking. Elliot peeked over the desk. "We can't go out the front. He'll pick us off before we make it 10 feet. Gregory's mind raced. They needed an escape, a way out that didn't put them in the sniper's line of sight. His eyes landed on the back door. It was risky. There could be another shooter waiting outside. But it was their only chance. "We take the back exit. Now." Gregory signaled to Elliot. Elliot nodded, pulling out his phone as they moved. "Calling for a car. Something fast." Gregory didn't wait. He pulled Jamie along, weaving through the panicked restaurant staff, dodging broken glass. Then, a sound made him stop cold. A click. Not a gun. A lock. Someone had locked the back door from the outside. Gregory's stomach dropped. This wasn't just a sniper attack. They were being herded. Trapped. Elliot cursed under his breath. "They're boxing us in." Jamie panicked, tugging on Gregory's sleeve. "What do we do?" "We're stuck." Gregory's jaw tightened. "Not yet." His eyes darted around, scanning the kitchen. There had to be another way out. And then, he saw it. The service exit hatch. A narrow metal door, leading to the alleyway where kitchen deliveries were made. It was small, barely big enough for someone to squeeze through. But it was unlocked. Gregory rushed forward, pushing it open. Cold night air rushed in. "Go, kid. Now." Jamie scrambled through first, disappearing into the alley. Elliot followed. Gregory was just about to climb through when, bang, a bullet ripped through the metal just inches from his head. Gregory ducked, heart hammering. They knew. The sniper had seen the escape route. Gregory launched himself through the hatch, hitting the pavement outside. Elliot slammed it shut behind him, breathing hard. For a second, they were safe. But only for a second. Because as soon as Gregory looked up, a second black SUV screeched around the corner, blocking the alleyway. Two masked men jumped out, guns drawn. "Get in the sear," one of them barked. Jamie froze in fear. Elliot reached for something in his jacket. Gregory. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed a metal trash can and slammed it into the nearest attacker. The man stumbled back, and in that split second, Gregory grabbed Jamie and ran. Elliot followed, dodging between dumpsters and stacks of wooden crates. "Go, go, go!" Gregory shouted, yanking Jamie forward as gunfire erupted behind them. Bullets whizzed past, splintering wood and ricocheting off metal. The alley was too long. They wouldn't make it before. Screech. A car skidded to a stop at the alley's far end. Gregory braced himself for another enemy. But then, the window rolled down, and a familiar voice shouted from inside. "Get in." No. It was Anna, Gregory's ex-wife. For a split second, Gregory froze. His ex-wife was the last person he expected to see. But there she was, Anna Stanton, gripping the wheel of a sleek black sedan, her face set with deadly determination. "Get in," she shouted again. Gunfire exploded behind them. Bullets ripped into the alley walls, missing them by inches. Gregory didn't hesitate. He grabbed Jamie and shoved him into the back seat. Elliot dove in next, slamming the door shut. Gregory barely had one foot inside when, bang, a bullet shattered the side mirror. Anna didn't wait. She slammed her foot on the gas, tires screeching as they tore out of the alley. Gregory barely managed to pull the door shut before the car swerved into traffic, narrowly missing an oncoming truck. "What the hell are you doing here?" Gregory demanded, still catching his breath. Anna's knuckles were white on the wheel. "Saving your life, obviously." Jamie, huddled in the back seat, looked up at her in confusion. Who is she?" Anna glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "I'm the woman who used to be married to your idiot friend here." Elliot, panting, ran a hand through his hair. "Okay, what the hell is going on? How did you know he was in danger?" Anna's jaw tightened. "Because," she said grimly, "I've been watching Harrison Vale for weeks. And I knew it was only a matter of time before he made a move." Gregory's stomach dropped. "You knew?" Anna nodded, eyes still locked on the road. "I knew he wasn't done with you, Greg. I just didn't know he'd be this bold." Gregory exhaled sharply, piecing it all together. Harrison hadn't forgotten the past. He had waited, planned, and now he was making his move, with an assassination attempt disguised as a simple meal. Elliot frowned. "So what's the plan now? Because I don't know about you, but I'd like to stay alive." Anna's gaze hardened. "We don't run," she said. "We go after him." Gregory raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly do you propose we do that?" Anna smirked, pulling onto a quiet side street. "Because, dear ex-husband," she said, pulling a burner phone from the glove compartment, "I have a source inside Harrison's operation." Gregory's pulse quickened. "Who?" Anna's expression turned serious. "You're not gonna like it," she warned. Gregory stared at her, waiting. And then, she said the name. A name he never expected to hear again. Jameson Calloway. The air in the car went ice cold. Elliot let out a low whistle. "Jameson Calloway? You mean the guy who—" "Yes," Anna interrupted. "The guy who betrayed Gregory. The guy who stole millions from him. The guy who disappeared off the grid for years." Gregory clenched his jaw. "And you're saying he's working for Harrison now?" Anna nodded. "More like Harrison thinks he is. But Jameson isn't loyal to anyone but himself. I have reason to believe he's playing both sides." Jamie looked between them, confused. "Who is this guy?" Gregory sighed. "An old enemy. And if what Anna's saying is true, he might be our only chance to bring Harrison down." Anna pulled the car to a stop in front of a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. She turned to Gregory. "Are you in?" Gregory didn't hesitate. "Let's end this." What would you do in Gregory's situation? Would you trust Jameson Calloway? Let us know in the comments. And if you're loving this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support keeps us going. The rundown motel was the kind of place people went to disappear. Peeling paint, flickering neon lights, and a parking lot filled with beat-up cars that looked like they hadn't moved in years. Gregory hated places like this. But if Jameson Calloway was really here, then this was where they needed to be. Anna turned off the engine. "Room 214. Gregory exhaled sharply. "And you're sure he'll talk?" Anna smirked. "Jameson. He always talks, if you give him the right reason." Jamie shifted nervously in the back seat. "Is this guy dangerous?" Gregory and Anna exchanged a look. "Extremely." Jamie's face paled. "Oh." Elliot cracked his knuckles. "Well, this should be fun." Gregory pushed open the car door. "Let's get this over with." "Room 214. Gregory knocked once. Silence. He knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. Anna sighed and reached for the hidden lock-pick in her pocket. Move. Gregory stepped aside as Anna worked quickly. Within seconds, click. The door swung open. Inside, the motel room was dimly lit and smelled of stale beer. A half-eaten burger sat on the nightstand, next to a handgun with the safety off. And on the bed, Jameson Calloway was passed out cold. Gregory's stomach twisted. For a moment, he thought the man was dead. But then, Jameson let out a deep, rattling snore. Elliot raised an eyebrow. Well, he's living his best life. Anna rolled her eyes and kicked the bed. Wake up, Calloway. We need to talk. Jameson groaned, stirring. 5 more minutes, babe. Gregory yanked him upright by the collar. Jameson's eyes snapped open. When he saw who was in front of him, his lazy smirk vanished instantly. Well, damn. Jameson muttered. Didn't expect to see you here, Stanton. Last time we spoke, I think you threatened to break my kneecaps. Gregory's grip tightened. And I still might. Jameson chuckled, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. What do you want? Anna crossed her arms. We know you're working with Harrison Vale. Jameson grinned, running a hand through his messy hair. Sweetheart, I work with a lot of people. Gregory slammed him back against the headboard. Cut the crap. We know Harrison tried to have me killed tonight. We know you're close to him. And we know you've been playing both sides. Jameson's smirk faltered. For the first time, his easygoing act cracked. Anna pressed forward. So here's the deal, Calloway. You tell us everything you know about Harrison's plan, or we turn you over to him and tell him you've been leaking information. Jameson's smirk disappeared completely. He exhaled, running a hand over his face. You guys really don't play fair, huh? Gregory's voice was ice cold. No, we don't. Jameson sighed. All right, fine. You want to know what Harrison's up to? He leaned in, lowering his voice. He's planning something big. Tonight was just the beginning. Gregory's blood ran cold. Explain. Jameson exhaled. Harrison doesn't just want you dead, Stanton. He wants to erase you. He wants to destroy your reputation, your fortune, everything you've built. And he's got the perfect plan to do it. Anna narrowed her eyes. What kind of plan? Jameson hesitated. Then, boom. The door exploded open, the force throwing Jameson off the bed. Gunfire erupted, splintering the walls. Gregory grabbed Jamie and dove behind the dresser. Elliot yanked Anna down as more bullets tore through the room. Jameson cursed. Well, damn. Looks like Harrison figured out I was talking. Gregory's mind raced. They were outnumbered, trapped, and if they didn't make a move now, they were dead. The motel room was a war zone. Bullets shredded the walls, shattered the lamp, and tore through the mattress. Dust and debris filled the air, making it hard to see, hard to breathe. Gregory pressed Jamie against the floor, shielding him with his own body. The kid was shaking, his breath coming in short, terrified gasps. Elliot ducked behind the dresser, yanking out his concealed pistol. We are so screwed. Anna gritted her teeth, pulling out her own firearm. Not yet. Jameson, bleeding from a gash on his arm, winced as he crawled toward the nightstand. Remind me never to talk again. Gregory's mind raced. They were trapped. 2 gunmen at the door, more outside. Whoever Harrison had sent wasn't here to negotiate, they were here to wipe them out. They needed a way out. Fast. Back window. Gregory hissed. Anna turned and saw it, small, dirty, but big enough for Jamie to squeeze through. Go, kid, she ordered. Jamie froze. What about you? We'll be right behind you, Gregory promised. Now go. Jamie crawled fast, shoving the window open. Cold night air rushed in. Then, more gunfire. The door burst open completely, and 2 masked gunmen stormed in. Gregory didn't hesitate. He grabbed the closest lamp and hurled it at the first attacker. The gunman stumbled, giving Anna just enough time to fire twice, direct hits. The second attacker lunged for Gregory, grabbing him by the collar. Gregory slammed his fist into the man's ribs, twisting out of his grip. The gun clattered to the floor. "Elliot!" Gregory shouted. Elliot kicked the gun across the room, sending it sliding under the bed. The attacker cursed, going for a knife instead. But before he could strike, Jameson grabbed the motel TV and smashed it over his head. The man collapsed. For a moment, everything went still. Heavy breathing. Smoke from gunfire hanging in the air. "Then, we have to go. Now," Anna barked. Jamie was halfway out the window. Gregory shoved him the rest of the way and climbed through next. The alley was dark and cold, but clear, for now. Elliot came next. Then Anna. Jameson hesitated. "You guys go ahead." Anna grabbed him by the shirt. "Oh no, you're coming with us, Calloway." "You owe us." Jameson sighed. "Fair point." He scrambled through. Just as more gunmen stormed into the motel room. The second they hit the ground outside. Screech. Another black SUV skidded into the alley, cutting off their escape. Gregory cursed. "They're everywhere." The driver's door opened. And stepping out, wearing an expensive suit, with cold, calculating eyes, was Harrison Vale. Gregory's stomach turned to ice. The man who had betrayed him. The man who had stolen everything. The man who had just tried to have him killed. Harrison adjusted his cuffs, smirking. "Gregory. Long time no see." Jamie instinctively hid behind Gregory, clutching his sleeve. Anna's hand hovered over her gun. Elliot tensed. Harrison tilted his head. "You've been very hard to kill tonight." Gregory's voice was like steel. "I get that a lot." Harrison chuckled. "I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. You always were annoyingly persistent." He sighed. "But you should know by now. You can't win this, Greg." Gregory's fists clenched. "Why? Why go this far?" Harrison's smirk vanished. His eyes darkened. "Because you ruined me," he said, voice low and deadly. "You took everything I worked for. Everything I deserved. And now..." His expression turned ice-cold. "I'm going to erase you." Gregory's heart pounded. This was it. The final move. No more running. No more hiding. Either they took down Harrison tonight, or they didn't make it out alive. Gregory took a deep breath. And then, he made his move. For a brief moment, everything was still. The cold wind whipped through the alley, carrying the scent of burning rubber and spilled gasoline. Harrison Vale stood in front of the SUV, flanked by two armed men, their fingers hovering over the triggers. His expression was one of pure satisfaction, like a chess player who had just cornered his opponent's king. Gregory felt Jamie tremble behind him, the boy's small hands gripping his coat tightly. Anna's hand inched toward her gun. Elliot shifted his stance, calculating an escape. Jameson. He looked like he was considering running for his life. And then, Harrison smiled. "Let's talk," he said smoothly. Gregory's jaw tightened. "We're past talking." Harrison sighed, feigning disappointment. "That's the problem with you, Greg. Always so stubborn." He gestured casually, and one of his men raised a gun, aiming it directly at Jamie. Gregory's blood turned ice-cold. "Don't." His voice was sharp, deadly. Harrison's smirk widened. "Ah, so he does matter to you." Jamie froze, his breath coming in quick, panicked gasps. Harrison stepped forward, his polished shoes crunching the gravel beneath them. "I'll make this simple, Greg. You surrender, right now. No resistance. No fighting. You get in the car with me, and we'll have a civilized conversation." Gregory's heart pounded. He could read between the lines. If he got in that car, he wasn't coming back. Jamie clutched his arm. "Don't go," he whispered. Gregory looked down at him, this homeless kid who had saved his life tonight. And that's when it hit him. Harrison was expecting him to act alone. To be the same man he was years ago, a businessman who only looked out for himself. But Gregory wasn't alone. Not this time. His eyes met Anna's, then Elliot's. A silent understanding passed between them. Then, he moved. Fast. Gregory grabbed Jamie and ducked left, just as Anna drew her gun and fired. Bang! The first shot took down the closest gunman. Elliot charged forward, ramming the second attacker into the SUV before he could react. Jameson. He ran for cover, swearing under his breath. Harrison's eyes went wide. Shoot them, you idiots! Gregory shoved Jamie behind a dumpster. Stay down. No matter what. Then, without hesitation, he rushed Harrison. Harrison barely had time to react before Gregory slammed into him, sending them both crashing against the SUV. You should have stayed in the past, Harrison, Gregory growled. Harrison snarled, trying to pull a knife from his jacket, but Gregory caught his wrist and twisted. Crack. Harrison screamed as the knife clattered to the ground. You're done. Gregory's voice was cold, final. But before he could land the final blow, Harrison lunged forward, grabbing Gregory by the throat. His grip was tight, crushing, and for a moment, Gregory struggled for air. You think this is over? Harrison hissed. You're nothing without your money. Without your power. I made you. Gregory's vision blurred. His lungs burned. Then, a sudden sound. Bang. Harrison's grip loosened. His body jerked back. A bullet hole bloomed in his shoulder. Anna stood behind him, gun still smoking. Actually, Greg made himself. Her voice was calm. Deadly. Harrison staggered, clutching his wound, eyes wide in shock. You shot me. Anna shrugged. I only missed your heart by choice. Gregory coughed, catching his breath as Harrison collapsed to his knees. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Elliot wiped blood from his mouth, having knocked out the last gunman. Well, that was fun. Jameson peeked out from behind a dumpster. So, we won, right? Jamie rushed forward, throwing his arms around Gregory. You're okay. Gregory's heart clenched. He wasn't used to this, having someone actually care if he lived or died. He patted the kid's back. I'm okay, kid. Harrison glared up at him, hatred burning in his eyes. You think this changes anything? You think I'll rot in prison? He gritted his teeth. Men like me, we don't lose. Gregory crouched in front of him, voice low and firm. You already lost. The police cars screeched to a stop, officers pouring out, guns drawn. Gregory stood up, watching as they swarmed Harrison, forcing him to the ground. The war was over. And this time, Gregory Stanton had won. The flashing red and blue lights painted the alley in pulsing waves. Harrison Vale was forced to the ground, his face pressed into the dirt as officers cuffed him. You have the right to remain silent, the cop began, but Harrison wasn't listening. He was staring straight at Gregory, his eyes burning with pure hatred. This isn't over, Stanton, he snarled. His voice was raw, filled with venom. I have people everywhere. You think locking me up changes anything? You're a dead man. Gregory crouched slightly, his face calm, unreadable. You had your chance, Harrison. You lost. Harrison spit on the ground, eyes narrowing. Men like me always get back up. Gregory didn't flinch. Instead, he smirked slightly. Then let's see how you do from a prison cell. The officers hauled him up, dragging him toward one of the patrol cars. Anna folded her arms, watching him go. Took long enough. Elliot wiped the blood from his busted lip, glancing at Gregory. So, what now? Back to business as usual. Gregory looked down at Jamie, who was still gripping his sleeve. The kid's face was streaked with dirt, his clothes ragged. For years, Gregory had thought money and power were everything. But tonight, this kid had saved his life. Gregory sighed, shaking his head. No. Not business as usual. Jamie blinked. What do you mean? Gregory took a deep breath. I mean, you're coming with me. Jamie's eyes widened. What? Gregory glanced at Anna, then Elliot, then back at the kid. You don't have anywhere to go, do you? Jamie looked at the ground, suddenly embarrassed. I guess not. Then that settles it. Gregory straightened, brushing the dust from his suit. You're with me now. Jamie stared in shock. You mean, like, for real? You're not just saying that. Gregory smirked. Do I look like the kind of guy who says things he doesn't mean? Jamie's face lit up. No. No, you don't. Anna rolled her eyes. Well, this is unexpected. Jameson, still leaning against a wall, snorted. Gregory Stanton, billionaire businessman, adopting a street kid? Never thought I'd see the day. Gregory shot him a look. You're one to talk. Weren't you just hiding behind a dumpster? Jameson raised his hands. Hey, I was supervising. You're welcome, by the way. Elliot sighed. So, what do we do with him? He nodded toward Jameson. Jameson grinned. I could disappear. Or, you could let me crash at one of your fancy penthouses. Gregory gave him a long, hard look. Jameson had betrayed him once. But tonight, he had helped. Gregory exhaled. Fine. One night. Then you're gone. Jameson smirked. See? I knew you loved me. Gregory shook his head, turning back to Jamie. Come on, kid. We're going home. Jamie beamed. For the first time in his life, he had a home. The ride back to Gregory Stanton's penthouse was silent, but it wasn't the tense, fearful silence of before. It was different. For Jamie, it was unreal. He had spent years sleeping on concrete sidewalks, eating from trash bins, and dodging the dangers of the streets. No. He was sitting in the back of a luxury car, staring out at the glittering city, heading to a place he never could have imagined calling home. Gregory, meanwhile, was lost in thought. The war with Harrison was over, but his words still lingered in the back of Gregory's mind. Men like me always get back up. Gregory knew that was true. He'd learned a long time ago that power and money weren't just about what you had. It was about who owed you favors. And Harrison Vale had a lot of people who owed him. Anna, sitting next to Gregory, must have sensed his thoughts. You're thinking about Harrison, she said. Gregory sighed. He's in prison. But for how long? Elliot scoffed from the front seat. With the kind of evidence we gave the cops. Long enough. You should be celebrating. Jameson smirked. I second that. Let's get some champagne. Gregory ignored him, turning to Jamie. What about you, kid? You hungry? Jamie snapped out of his trance, eyes wide. Wait, are you serious? Like real food? Gregory chuckled. Yeah, real food. Jamie nodded so fast his head almost fell off. Then let's eat, Gregory said. At the penthouse. When Jamie stepped inside, he froze. The place was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A view of the entire city. A kitchen that looked like it had never been used. His dirty sneakers felt wrong on the expensive marble floor. Holy, Jamie whispered. This is like a whole other world. Jameson flopped onto the couch, stretching. Not bad, Stanton. Not bad at all. Anna nudged Gregory. You're really doing this, huh? Taking in a kid. Gregory exhaled, watching Jamie as he explored the place, touching everything like he couldn't believe it was real. Yeah, Gregory said. I guess I am. Anna smiled slightly. Well, didn't think I'd see the day. Elliot grinned. I'll call a private chef. Let's get the kids something special. Jamie's eyes widened. A private chef. Gregory smirked. Yeah. You ever had a real steak? Jamie shook his head. I've had a half-eaten McDonald's burger before. Gregory clapped a hand on his shoulder. Well, tonight you're eating something better. Jamie grinned. This is the best night of my life. Gregory chuckled, but deep down, something shifted in him. 4 years, he had chased power, money, and revenge. But tonight, he had found something else entirely. And for the first time in a long, long time, Gregory Stanton felt like a real human being again. 1 week later, things had changed. Harrison was locked away, his empire collapsing. Gregory had spent the last few days cleaning up the mess, securing his business, and keeping an eye on Jamie. And Jamie was thriving. Fresh clothes, a warm bed, food that didn't come from a dumpster. But most of all, he had a family. Gregory wasn't just giving him a roof over his head. He was teaching him, guiding him, and maybe, just maybe, Jamie was teaching Gregory something, too. But then, one morning, as Gregory sipped his coffee, his phone buzzed. A blocked number. Gregory's stomach tightened. He answered. Silence on the other end. Then, a voice. Familiar. Cold. You should have killed me when you had the chance. Gregory's fingers tightened around his cup. Harrison. Still pulling strings. Still a threat. Gregory smirked. Oh, don't worry. I'll be ready for you. Click. Call ended. Gregory exhaled, setting his phone down. Jamie walked into the kitchen, yawning. Morning. Gregory ruffled his hair. Morning, kid. For now, he would enjoy the quiet. But deep down, he knew. The game wasn't over yet. It never was. And Gregory Stanton never lost. What do you think? Should there be a sequel? Will Harrison make a comeback? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for following this epic journey.